Hi there my friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I thought I'd jump on today and just show you these set of travel brushes I received from Golden Maple a few weeks ago. This is a vegan set. They come in a vegan leather wallet and they come in three sizes, a 12, an 8 and a 4. So I'll just show them to you now. So they're really lightweight. You unscrew the lid of the brush, screw it onto the bottom and it attaches nice and tight. You make sure you do screw them on tightly, else they'll work themselves loose. They're really nice weighted brush and with really fine tips. And obviously because they've come straight from the manufacturer, each brush tip does have a waxy coating, so they're just showing you there on the barrel that it just says a number 12 on there with the words Golden Maple. And unscrewing the second one, the middle one, and it's a number 8 and again says Golden Maple. And this is when they tried to make their escape off the desk, and that's a number 4. So really everything you need for a little travel set, number 4 with Golden Maple written on. So what I do is to just remove that waxy coating. I get some tepid water, some just slightly warm water, and give the brushes a little clean. And I do that simply by dipping the tip of the brush into the water, loosening the bristles with my fingers, and yeah, the waxy coating comes off really easily. And as I said, it's just there from the manufacturing process. So give it a quick squeeze there with some water on and it soon breaks up without damaging the bristles. And once you feel that the bristles have been freed, give it a quick swirl and a quick dry. And you're good to go. When you are using a travel brush set like this, just be careful when you put in the lids back on that you don't trap any of the bristles or pull the bristles the wrong way. So lovely tips on those. Okay, so I got a Bockingford block. It is acid free in weight, 140 pounds, and it's cold press. And I thought I'd just have a play and put these brushes through the processes that I normally use. So I'm working with Core watercolour paints, that's QOR watercolour paints, and I've just got a few remnants of paint in this ceramic palette, and I thought why not just have a play with some colours, a little bit of a random painting going on there, spritzing with some distilled water, letting the paint do its thing and see where it takes us. It's a little bit of a journey. A lot of artists think of this as spontaneous watercolour painting, but I must admit I did get a little bit carried away with this one and spent far too long on this painting, especially when it was just sort of a play piece. But I think we all do that, don't we? Get in the zone and don't know when to stop. So that was the number 12 that I was using to apply there, and I do use all three brushes through the process and they work lovely. I've got nothing bad to say about them. They're all really well weighted once the lids are attached to the bottom of the brush, and they held their points all the way through the process. I worked with watercolour and gouache. Handled it really well. So it's just letting the watercolour just do its own thing and seeing what results you get. Some of these, it's sort of a make or break situation on some of these. Some of these paintings work out, some of them don't, but it's just a bit of fun. So I hope everybody's keeping well and keeping creative. Lovely and sunny here. So this video is only around about 20 minutes long, that's all. Just showing you the processes that I use, as well as showing you that these brushes do what they're made to do. Really pleased with them. It's always nice to get sent art materials that you wouldn't normally buy yourself and be able to have a play with them, and obviously give the manufacturers and the people that are actually selling the brushes a little bit of feedback. They didn't ask for me to make a video, they just wanted me to use the brushes and just to let them know my feelings on the brushes, and so this hopefully will be a nice surprise for them. Got a few more videos partially filmed at the moment, but obviously with projects that need finishing off before I can upload them onto my YouTube channel. So again, just spritzing, letting the water and the paint mix and travel. I am working at about a 15-degree level, so the paper is tilted slightly towards me, just to let gravity help that paint and water move. I'm playing with some colours there. Best thing about the core watercolour paints, I buy them in tubes and then just pop them into a palette or pop them into a ceramic mixing palette like this, and when they dry they re-wet really well. So I have bought another empty palette and I'm going to be transferring the tubes over into that soon, and that will work well as an additional travel palette. Now, while all these paints and pigments were settling into the paper, and as you can see, it is cockling slightly even though it is on a block, which means it's glued all the way around the 4 sides. Once I put a hairdryer to it later, it flattened out perfectly, not a problem at all. But while you're working like this, you've got to keep in mind that the paint will settle where the valleys are, where the dips in the paper are. And already I was seeing sort of a cliff face with trees growing above it, even though that wasn't planned. That's just what happens when you do spontaneous watercolour. You just let the watercolour do its thing and see where it leads you. So that's dried off. I dried it off with a hairdryer a little bit just so I could start working on top. And I decided to add some shadows under there where there's maybe bushes growing on top of that cliff top. As well as the trees. And as you'll see in the finished painting, it looks quite different. I did get carried away and applied more layers than I was originally planning to. So this should have been just sort of an hour, and it just led to a few hours over a couple of days. I kept going back and playing, as you do when you're enjoying yourself. So just putting in some darker shadow shapes now and just letting the mark making lead the way. Obviously no reference images for this, so all out of my imagination. And it's just nice. It's a very, very freeing process, and you can't go wrong because you're not copying a reference image, or you're not even working from a reference image. So if it goes wrong, it's obviously gone wrong from your imagination, and that's all really. But the brushes were wonderful, absolutely wonderful. They're now cleaned and back and dry and back in their wallet, and I'll bring them out next time I go plein air sketching and painting. If that's something you'd like for me to make a video about, just let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to see an outdoor process, I can set up a tripod and film when I next go out. I might even do some painting in the garden, because the garden is full of wildflowers and vegetation, all looking nice and lush at the moment. So I'm very tempted to go and sit out there this afternoon and do some sketching. So using a little bit more watercolour there, making a little bit more interest in the painting in the middle, because it did look a bit like there was something missing in the middle. And one of these paintings, you could quite easily just leave it there and let people's imagination do the rest. But not me. On this occasion, I just got carried away, wanted more colour. Wanted more foliage in there and more structure. And it's about taking a step back sometimes and looking at the overall composition, even though this is just a chance to see how the brushes work and just have a play. I still had in mind the composition of the piece and how it was coming together. Obviously no sketch underneath, so no guidelines to go by. But it's a really nice way of using up any surplus pigments you have in a palette as well, as doing something like this. And you could do this kind of thing on very small pieces of paper and make little bookmarks and things like that. So whether you're trying out new, brushes or new pencils, new paints, or just using up remnants that are left over, there's always something that can be used for, and not one for throwing any mediums away at all. Even if brushes become damaged, they're always the ones that I reach for certain textured effects. So acrylic brushes, if you ever get an acrylic brush that you just can't bring back to life, maybe it was left with paint on and became damaged and frayed, keep it to one side. Even have a little jar, sort of a Techniques brush jar with those brushes in, because 9 times out of 10 you will find a use for them at some point in your artistic journey. So I was definitely feeling that there was a big tree at the front there, so putting a branch in here and there and the trunk of the tree, but obviously not a straight line from the bottom of the tree right to the top, because I want some of it to be covered by the greenery that is already there. So the core watercolours, they do move a lot. They're very fast at moving on damp paper, but now I'm working wet on dry. And just working in a mishmash of colours, just reaching for anything out of this ceramic palette at the moment. I think the one I keep dipping into is Quin Gold, although I'm not sure. And obviously adding a little bit of blue is creating the green colour. So backwards and forwards with a cup of coffee on the go, and I think I was listening to some YouTube videos while I was painting this. I don't like to work when it's completely silent. I think I overthink things then. If there's nothing happening at all in the studio except me working, I do need a little bit of a distraction, preferably audio and not visual. I'm mixing a different blue into there just to create a cooler green towards the background of the painting. So cool colours will always look like they're further away from the viewer than warmer colours. And obviously warmer colours do the opposite and they look like they're nearer to the viewer. So got a little bit of liquid gouache, white gouache, which is just an opaque watercolour, mixing it with the watercolours themselves and using that opacity just to liven up the painting and adding highlights. But obviously highlights of colour, not just highlights of white. And I'd popped a little bit of a waterfall in there that I thought could be coming from underneath the foliage and coming down between those rocks where there just seemed to be a natural gap in the painting composition. With the opaque watercolours with the gouache, they are always reactive with water unless you're using acrylic gouache, but this is just a normal water-based gouache. So if you put something down that you don't like, you can just simply paint over it, merge it in with whatever layer you're putting on top, or wet it and lift it off with a soft tissue. So later on in the painting, I did go in and put some gouache into the sky. I felt it needed just a little bit more of a punch in the sky with the blues. A lot of the green was showing through the blue and it was looking quite odd towards the end of the painting, so I decided just to mix some of my watercolour blues with a little drop of that liquid white gouache and create a wash for the sky. But you'll see that in the finished painting right at the end of the video. So I could have left it here. I'd already decided that these brushes were working wonderfully. They are nylon bristle brushes, golden taklon. They've got a nice springy snap to them, and they do hold a lot of water and obviously a lot of pigment as well. And they are all rounds, a 12, an 8 and a 4. And once they're in the wallet, it's small enough for you to just slip into your pocket or a small bag. They're obviously not as thirsty as sort of a mimic squirrel brush or a mimic sable brush or anything like that, but their water holding capacity is still a lot. So, masked off the top of the painting with some kitchen roll and had a play at just flicking some pigment onto the bottom to add a little bit of texture to the bottom of the paper. So visual texture, not physical texture. And again, if it goes on too thick or if you get a spot of paint where you don't want it, as long as you're working quite quickly, you can go in with a damp brush and remove it. As I said, I'm working on a Bockingford block of paper. It's the cold press, acid free, 140 pounds in weight. So decided to mix some greens now with a little bit of the white liquid gouache and add some highlights to the trees. And I went along at the edges of the left hand side of the main tree and just added a little bit of a highlight there as well. Now just picking out a few areas of foliage that might be catching the light if the light's coming in from the left hand side. And again, just relaxing, just playing. If this didn't work out, that would have been fine, because I already knew that these brushes could do the job that they were designed for. If you have any mediums or subjects you'd like to see me cover, then just drop a message in the comments below. I do read them all and reply to everybody's comments. This isn't a normal routine painting for me. I normally do obviously wildlife studies and portraits and things like that, but I do work in quite a large range of mediums, including oils and acrylics, watercolours, graphite, charcoal, inks, ink and wash, things like that, and obviously gouache as well. And if you've never used gouache but want to have a play, it's worth picking up just a white gouache, a tube of white gouache, and then you can mix your watercolours into it and paint with all the different colours as gouache just by using white gouache and your traditional watercolours. And it will give you a feel for the medium. Okay, so there you have it. That's how it ended up looking towards the end. Probably a little bit overworked, but that's fine. The brushes did what they were, meant for and worked really well. So thumbs up for Golden Maple Travel Brush Set. Hope you enjoyed me jumping on to YouTube today and sharing this with you. Stay safe, stay creative, and like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.